back to another History Teacher Reacts video, Mr. Terry. Today we are wrapping up the Haitian Revolution series by Extra History. So this is episode 6. So if you are new to the series, I guess, make sure to go back and check out the previous videos because this is going to wrap this up. So I've enjoyed this series. I'm learning more about one of the most painfully underlooked and understudied revolutions that we have, especially of this era of Age of Revolutions. It often gets overshadowed by things like the French Revolution, American Revolution, maybe some of the other Latin American revolutions. But it's an important thing, especially as the Haitian Revolution is virtually the only truly successful slave revolt in history, and I think that's important to study. All right, well, we're going to get started here. Hopefully you've been liking this series. If you like it and you haven't yet, make sure to go down below. And if you like the video, there'll be a link to the original video, and that'll give you a chance to give them a like, a view, subscription. Definitely encourage it. They're one of the great, best YouTube series on that there is out there on the internet for history. So, all right, let's go ahead and get on to this. This is episode 6, and it is titled Roots of Liberty. So I guess we're going to see this kind of wrap up and what's kind of created here as a result of the revolution. All right, we got 1802. So we're getting Napoleonic years, so that's interesting to see how the sort of reign of Napoleon's going to get, how that's going to influence this. And there's a little bit of introduction of that, too, in the last episode. So check out episode 5. All right, let's do it.
January 1802, Le Cap. 20,000 French soldiers arrive off the coast of Saint-Thomas. For months, Toussaint Louverture has sent letters to Napoleon telling him that the only way for Saint-Thomas to stay a part of France is home rule, a system where slavery can never return. Toussaint has not broken the colony from France, he argues. He has saved it. Napoleon feels differently. He has sent this force under the command of his brother-in-law, Charles Leclerc, with orders to...
By the way, Napoleon was notorious for bringing in family members, people very close to him. But again, it's family members to leadership positions, which oftentimes backfired. Like, for example, when they pretty much deposed the King of Spain, he puts in his brother, who was not well liked, which led to guerrilla warfare and them losing their power, the French losing their power in Spain. So this is something he's a lot of nepotism.
Subjugate the island and arrest Toussaint, because he fundamentally believes Toussaint's government should not exist. My decision to destroy the authority of the blacks in Saint-Thomas, Napoleon said, is not so much based on consideration of commerce and money, as on the need to block forever the march of blacks in the world. And in that...
We got racist Napoleon here. Not for an economic reason. You think that would be the thing he would say, especially in this time of things. Now, this is more of a topic for another time, but just real quickly, that is a common discussion that people have in history communities, is what is Napoleon's sort of role in the context of the revolution? Is he a person of the revolution and revolution ideas, or was he ending it and reverting things? I mean, the safest thing to say is there were things that he was supportive. There were more suffrage rights to voting under him. Just as an example, expanded education and things like that, but also undid things. I know one of the things he was kind of notorious for undoing was some of the rights that women got during that they had just gotten promised by the convention and things. So it's an interesting thing of what take he's going to take. He's actually going to take, it looks like, a racial tone to the revolution, and it should be put down that way, which is really not something that people were talking about, at least not openly. You know, economics has always been the reason for Haiti's existence, and its way it was structured.
That endeavor, he will fail.
Napoleon fail at something? What?
Toussaint Louverture's Constitution of 1801 was a landmark in world history. Not only did it state that slavery would never be allowed in Saint-Thomas, it made Haiti the first nation in the world whose constitution forbade discrimination on the basis of race and skin color. It's an incredible document. And
that is, again, a reason why the Haitian Revolution needs to be talked about, is the things that they are doing are still so ahead of its time. It's early 1800s of the things that they're doing. And again, I think it gets overlooked because of Haiti doesn't turn into a power. It's one of the most impoverished nations. But look at what they achieved. You know,
many nations will spend a century and a half catching up to those same ideals.
For sure.
But it also effectively gave the colony home rule. And not only did this, let's just say, upset France, it also made Toussaint's allies reconsider supporting him. The British were briefly at peace with France and no longer wanted to rock the boat. And the new president of the United States, Thomas Jefferson, was a staunchly pro-French slave owner. He was not going to support a government formed via slave revolt. In fact, both nations were so concerned that the revolution might spread to their own slave systems that they began turning away refugees that might even carry news of it.
Makes sense. I mean, from that end, if, depending on the time in America, but that people are always afraid of revolutions. A lot of people are globally. American Revolution, French Revolution, Haitian Revolution, because of the fear that it could spread to your nation. And if you are, depending on what kind of leader you are, what kind of government you are at that time, that, yeah, you may take measures to try to prevent that. So that makes sense kind of with America. They Haitian people moving out of Haiti, probably freed blacks, right? That don't want them coming in because it could surmount insurrection in your country. So that's when you can talk about these revolutions in like a world history setting because of the global effect that it has.
There was an idea developing that this troublesome island that had proven slave insurrection could not only win, but then fight off incursions by multiple European armies would set a bad precedent if it succeeded. Besides, the country's sugar infrastructure had been so damaged by the years of fighting that the main economic argument that independence was good for foreign trade no longer held water. 15%
True.
of Saint-Domingue's workforce.
And they said in the last video, which is an interesting thing, that I think Toussaint was telling like the freed slaves, like, hey, we know that our colony was built upon the slave labor specifically for sugar production. But now that we're freed, our society is freed, that doesn't mean that like sugar production shouldn't end. That should still be like the basis of our economy. That we'll be an independent nation and trade that. And that became an issue because it seemed like when I remember this from the last episode, that a lot of these freed slaves did not want to work in those sugar plantations anymore. Maybe just from the fact of what it had once represented. But I know Toussaint said that like this needs to still happen. Otherwise, we're not going to have a country. And yes, we know these conditions were terrible, but maybe they don't have to be like that anymore. But it was still like too much for a lot of people to overcome.
Had left the plantations to join rebel or foreign armies. Factory workers in cities had been repeatedly damaged. And then Leclerc arrived. Originally, his orders were to negotiate a peaceful solution. But that went out the window when one of his commanders attacked a fort due to a miscommunication.
What were the
Now
negotiations?
It was war. Toussaint's defensive plan was to withdraw into the mountainous interior for a guerrilla war, torching the cities so the French had no base of operations. Experience taught him that these new arrivals would suffer badly from disease, and that would be his advantage. But 2 months before Leclerc arrived, Toussaint was forced to put down a rebellion, led by his adopted nephew, who had never been fully on board with the forced labor program. Soon, Leclerc secured the Santo Domingo side. Had Toussaint been able to marshal a united island, he would have won outright. But the recent civil strife and garbled communications meant that many did not rally to his banner.
One of the things I've been hoping to learn, and maybe it doesn't happen at this time, was how do we get the split island today from Haiti and the Dominican Republic? Because it seems like it's kind of going back and forth in a way. But when do we get where we are today?
Even so, initial battles stunned both sides with their ferocity. Toussaint decided against raising the cities, but one of his commanders did put Le Cap to the torch before withdrawing. Both sides were in bad shape. Yellow fever swept through the French ranks, and the guerrilla campaign caused heavy casualties. So 5 months into the war, when Leclerc offered peace, in exchange for Toussaint retiring to his plantation with full honors, Toussaint decided that it was his best option. He could not continue. It was there the French troops arrested him. Instead of treating him like an officer of rank, they bundled him along like a prisoner, musket at his back, putting him on a ship and deporting him to France. In overthrowing me, you have cut down in Saint-Domingue only the trunk of the Tree of Liberty, Toussaint warned during the arrest. It will spring up again from the roots, for they are numerous and they are deep. He would die less than a year later, malnourished and ill in a mountain castle. But his words proved prophetic. Leclerc had taken nominal control, having brought with him André Rigaud and other exiles that had fled Toussaint, and had mostly convinced the population that France did not intend to bring back slavery. But then,
what do they want?
France brought back slavery in nearby Guadeloupe.
That's what I know, because didn't they say in the last episode that it confirmed that Napoleon did want slavery to return? I'm trying to remember, or was that just the accusation that he would want that? I can't remember.
And residents of Saint-Domingue knew it was only a matter of time before it happened to them. This was the universal call to arms Toussaint could not raise. No one wanted slavery back. Local officers that had supported Leclerc defected, and one group massacred several hundred Polish troops who were part of the French expedition. So, Leclerc decided on a new tactic: utter brutality. He wrote to Napoleon, saying that he would exterminate the rebels in the mountain areas, sparing only children under age 12. He would execute.
But what are they rebelling against now, and what rebellion are they putting down? Because Leclerc's not trying to put in slavery. Is it just it's an independence thing? They're rebelling because they want full independence. It's even like Toussaint wasn't that like that necessarily.
All black military officers. French soldiers shot and bayoneted prisoners by the hundreds. He executed 1,000 people by tying weights around their necks and throwing them off ships. And Jacques Dessalines, now in nominal control of local forces, responded in kind. The violence of the conflict only escalated further when Leclerc himself died of yellow fever, leaving in charge an even more brutal subordinate who imported man-eating dogs to deal with the rebels. But this only galvanized the black and colored armies to finally form a united force. A year later, a year where Dessalines handed the French defeat after defeat, both sides gathered for what would be a decisive battle. The French held a hill fort, and General Francois Capua, a man who had risen up the ranks to become a general and was known as Capua the Death, sounded the charge. French cannons tore into their ranks. Capua and his soldiers clambered over the casualties, regrouping when broken, reforming and pushing on. On the fourth assault, Capua tumbled to earth, his horse mutilated by a cannonball. He rose, and a bullet snatched away his hat. Then he drew his sword and ran in front of his men, yelling, "Forward! Forward!" The display was so incredible, the French stopped firing and applauded his bravery. A French officer rode forward to carry the general's compliments. After this weird little aside, then the fighting resumed. Rebel generals serving in the front line were wounded. Shots tore away pieces of their uniforms. Still, they attacked. Then, the revolution ended as it began, with a storm. Lightning rent the air, and water poured down. The French withdrew, their position untenable. They sent a peace envoy the next day to negotiate their withdrawal from the island. Of the 80,000 French troops sent to Saint-Domingue, only 30,000 would return. In fact, their withdrawal was part of a general French pullback from the Americas. The vast expenditures of blood and treasure in Saint-Domingue convinced Napoleon to cut his losses and focus on his European wars. To help that pursuit, he sold Louisiana to the United States.
That's always been a big thing that is talked about how, Napoleon was unable to really care as much about the overseas empires, especially with how ambitious he was in Europe, that they were willing to sell pretty much on the cheap what's today the middle third of United States of America. But then, in the context, too, of giving up on Haiti.
Dessalines was supposed to send the French wounded back to France after Leclerc's withdrawal. He drowned them instead. Because Dessalines had learned something from all of those years of indecision around slavery. With its wild reversals over civil rights and abolition, with French citizens like the Big Whites constantly trying to undermine and reverse every freedom won, the French had sent a message over the past decade that the people of Saint-Domingue would never be safe under the rule of white Frenchmen. So, after declaring the island to be the independent nation of Haiti, Dessalines ordered all remaining white French should be massacred, even the women and children.
Whoa! Yikes! Massacres on both sides. This is brutal. French were doing it to the Haitians, and the Haitians are doing it to the white Haitians.
People were reluctant, and often only complied when Dessalines showed up with an army to enforce the edict.
Yeah, how could you not?
Some French escaped, pretending to be Americans or British, who were not subject to the decree. But the message Dessalines intended to send backfired. It further isolated Haiti, with the United States refusing to recognize its government or trade with it for 60 years.
This might be a dagger in the beginning of Haiti. If Haiti's not going to get foreign help from places in the West, like America, and obviously he's going to have a rough relationship with the French there, can they support themselves? They are an export society. They need to sell to these other nations, and if you don't have that support, man, it's going to be rough. So start to make sense how Haiti is not going to do well. They have no allies now.
Dessalines' military rule and crowning himself emperor continued to set the new nation on a troubled path. Generals would seize power regularly, ensuring the new nation could never fully recover from the damage of the revolution. Slaveholding societies like the United States looked at Haiti as a nightmare scenario, using it to argue incorrectly that wholesale slaughter was the inevitable result of abolition, and that a black nation could not govern itself. Later, the French returned, forcing the Haitian government into massive indemnity payments it couldn't afford, burdening the already broken economy, keeping it in poverty.
They're going to pay that.
And due to this political instability,
Are they going
the
to?
United States would stage multiple military interventions in the 19th and 20th centuries under the banner of protecting American lives and property, eventually occupying the nation for 19 years. Others saw a different message, one of inspiration, not fear. When American firebrand John Brown tried to raise a slave revolt in the South before the Civil War, he'd hoped to trigger an uprising like Haiti's. And the new nation would both...
John Brown's story's nuts. Check out the he's quite a bit in the oversimplified Civil War, right? Video. Dude's an interesting character. Look him up.
Both harbor the revolutionary Simon Bolivar when he was a fugitive and loan him Haitian troops on the condition that he freed the slaves in Spanish America. To the oppressed and colonized around the world, Haiti would become a symbol, one that showed what was possible when people, despite having nothing but determination and a desire for freedom, declared they would be slaves no more. Special thanks to our educational tier patrons Ahmed Ziad Turk, Joseph Blaine, and Dominic Valenciana.
You know, reminds me of something that John Green said in Crash Course with the Haitian Revolution, and it was basically his parting words that kind of echo this, which is, you know, when you hear about Haiti today, and you hear about the poverty and the impoverished nature and maybe corruption and stuff like that, that it's important to remember what they had done and what they had been through, right? It's important to remember that, right? And again, I think that's the biggest reason why this revolution gets overlooked, is because of what Haiti becomes. If Haiti becomes like this big Caribbean power, then you're talking about it more. But you're talking about of the history of slavery, right? Which is so extensive throughout human history. There's one successful slave revolt in the history of slavery in the world, and it's this one, right? That on its own merit is important to study, to see them, a former slave colony, get independence and become a republic. And it looks like on some of the social premise, outside the guy at the end they were talking about massacring the white people of Haiti, but being far more progressive in that stance at a time when you see, like with America, is good 60 years and a civil war away from not just ending slavery, not even giving necessarily equal rights. That's going to be kind of unraveled throughout the decades. But anyway, and you see that. So it's important to remember what Haiti has gone through, especially if it's going to be criticized or ignored for its condition today. All right. Well, I'm glad to have watched this series there. Just get a little bit more of it. I will say the Haitian Revolution is far more complicated than I ever thought, as far as all the different groups that were there and the back and forth that was going on. I mean, I knew about Toussaint Louverture, but some of these other things, and then looking at the role that Napoleon had played, which we watched in the last couple episodes, it is far more complicated though than just saying, oh yeah, it was a slave revolt, the slaves revolted and then they became a nation. Like it's a lot more complicated than that. But that was good to check that out. So, all right, awesome. I'm glad we're able to do this and get through this series. So we have wrapped it up. If you have not seen the other episodes, definitely check them out and kind of give me your thoughts on it. Interested, I've asked this a couple of times, is what have you been taught, or have, if at all, been taught about the Haitian Revolution in a class? Did you know about it before at all? You know what I mean? So, or in what context is it? So anyway, all right, awesome. Thanks for watching. Again, if you like this original video, go down below and make sure you give them at least even just a view. Okay, but give them a view, give them a like, subscribe to their channel. They got awesome stuff. The cool little, if you're into this kind of mini series thing where they usually do about 4 to 6 episodes, they're only like 9-10 minutes each, so you can either binge them or you can kind of do what I've done, which is kind of spread them out and watch other things as well. and they're pretty informative there. So, all right, with that, I think we're good. If you haven't subbed to my channel, I'd love to have you around, be a part of our community, enable those notifications so you can hang out with us at live premieres and live chats. Join our Discord server down below if you want to join our community as well. We got a lot of active, history-minded people that are good to talk with and could talk about all kinds of different things. So, all right, thanks to all patron pledgers and anyone else supporting the channel that way. But first and foremost, thanks to everyone that's just watching and being a part of our community here and promoting history education. All right, with that, we'll see you next time. Bye.